Welcome to this lecture on engineering terms. This first lecture is on space, and it will introduce you to the engineering terms we derive from the property of space. Click on spacebar to continue. The universe comes into existence at the Big Bang. The universe is composed of four things: space, time, energy, and mass. As we go through the process of defining our engineering terms, we'll see that all our terms will be derived from these four fundamental properties. The first property is space. Space means a way to move. In mathematics, a way to move is called a dimension. There are three dimensions of space, and the first dimension is called length. Space is measured in meters. A meter is defined as the distance light travels in roughly 300 billionths of a second. Here we measure a length of 5 meters. I can also state my position on this line as being 5 meters from the origin. Now when I add another dimension to space, the second dimension is called width. This gives me a way to mark my position in space on any flat or two-dimensional surface. Notice that I have to give both dimensions to record my position, and I can now make maps of the Earth and measure where things are. I also have a new thing to measure. If I multiply length times width, I get the area of a surface, and I can now measure the area of any two-dimensional surface. The units will be meters times meters, or meters squared. Our third dimension of space is called height, or depth, depending on whether you're measuring up or down. Its line is perpendicular to both length and width. I can now mark my position in three-dimensional space using these three dimensions. I also have a way of measuring this three-dimensional space. It's called volume. Its units are length times width times height, or meters cubed. Now in engineering, a dimension gives something a degree of freedom, which is a way to move in that space. So if something can only move along a length, we say it has 1 degree of freedom. But with length and width, I now have 2 degrees of freedom, and I can travel back and forth and left and right. And in three-dimensional space, I have now 3 degrees of freedom. I can travel up, down, left, right, and forward and back. And if I add 3 rotational degrees of freedom, such as pitch, roll, and yaw, I have a total of 6 degrees of freedom, which is the most I can have in a space. So let's put together what we know about space in a chart. Space is a way to move. It has 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. If I multiplied length times width, I get the area of a two-dimensional surface. If I multiply length times width times height, I get the volume of a three-dimensional space. Each dimension also gives a degree of freedom, and I can have 3 linear and 3 rotational degrees of freedom for a total of 6 degrees of freedom.